All right. Welcome, welcome. I know a couple of minutes late there, but we were letting a few of you officially connect, and I can see those numbers rising as we speak. So to some new faces, I'm sure, welcome, and maybe some familiar faces. I know that we've run some of these masterclasses in the past, and I'm sure David Moore is a familiar face to a number of the crew as well. So what I thought would be useful, I'll give some context for the territory that we'll be covering this evening, and then I'll say good day to David as well. And then we're going to get started. You know, we've got 45, 50 minutes here. I want to ensure that you guys get some value. I'm mindful of your time. I'm mindful of the time. I know there might be some people from New Zealand a couple of hours ahead of me in Brisbane. Of course, there might be a couple of people a couple of hours behind me, whether we've got some people from WA. David, of course, in South Oz there as well. So context for today, 5 key steps to unlock consistent profit and cash flow. That's the territory that we will be covering. And it's been said that if you manage your money more wisely, you'll have more money to manage. However, for me, supporting many trade and construction-based businesses over the years, what I've observed is often we're great at the craft. We're not so great at getting in front of the numbers. We're not so great at managing the numbers. In fact, often we don't even know what it means to manage the numbers. Yeah. What we need to do is, leaving today, start to get clear. What are some of the key metrics that it would be useful for me to get in front of? And that's what we'll explore. Yeah. 5 key steps to unlock consistent profit and cash flow. The final thought that I'll mention is consistent is the key. I think if you're in this room, if you're having this conversation, it's not lost on me that you've probably got a strong business. You're probably capable of winning some work and being profitable. You're clearly capable of bringing some money into the business, yeah, by virtue of the fact that you've made the time and you've got the computer to sit in front of this evening. But it's the consistency. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And we know the 2 key pain points for people in business is the money and your team. I know, David, you and John Mailer led a recent session around the team. And if you haven't seen that, maybe they can get access to it. I'm sure maybe some of you could let us know in the chat if you did attend. This evening, however, the obvious focus is on the money. So I might say good day to you, David, and I've got my right-hand helper in Gagi from Pro Trade United as well this evening.
Yeah, hi, Dominic. For those who don't know me, of course, David Moore. I'm based in Adelaide. I'm a Sparky myself, although many years off the tools, working with as a program manager for Schneider, both across for Australia being the Clipsal brand and for New Zealand being the PDL brand. So welcome everybody. And thank you, Pro Trade and Dominic, for one of these insightful sessions. Always good, and I'm always keen to learn.
Yeah, thank you, David, and obviously Clipsal Schneider, such a valued partner of ours. And I've got Gagi supporting me, the general manager here at Pro Trade United as well. So she'll be supporting me with some logistics. But Gagi, maybe throw to you, wanting to say good day to the crew.
Too easy. Thanks so much, Dom, and thanks, David. And on behalf of Pro Trade, we're so excited to do another one of these sessions. I know previously we've had John and David, and now we've got Dom as well to share some insights this evening. So really excited to share a really apt topic with what's going on in the market at the moment. And if you've got any questions or queries throughout the session, feel free to use the chat box to ask your questions, and we'll be monitoring them throughout the session. As well as David's hinted that there is a giveaway at the end. So those of you who are more actively engaged, asking the great questions, interacting, there may be a reward at the end of the session that we'll reveal at the end as well. So feel free to jump in. We'll communicate as much as we can. And a friendly reminder, this session is recorded and you'll get a copy of the recording as well tomorrow. So make sure you're just present, taking it all in, and yeah, looking forward to another insightful session together.
Yeah, thank you, Gagi. And speaking of insightful, I think one thing to note is that PowerPoint presentations, they can be boring, they can be a drain. And here's my intention. I want to keep it energy up. So I want you guys engaging. I want you in the chat. I want you to ask questions, please. don't be shy. And of course, David, Gargi, myself, we're here to keep the energy up as well. So we'll keep it punchy, we'll keep it powerful. And all I ask for you guys is to be really present, really connected, and just set an intention. What's something that you'd like to leave today being clearer on around the numbers? And at the very least, just choose leaving today with a little bit of value. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen, and thumbs up, you guys can see this okay? So again, 5 key steps to unlock consistent profit and cash flow. Consistent, yeah, being the really, really important word. So we've just said good day to David Moore, obviously, one of our valued partners, and obviously an important part of the Clipsal Snyder brand. Myself, so Dom Aldridge, I'm one of the senior advisors and coaches here at Pro Trade United. And so excited to share Pro Trade United. We're celebrating our 10th year anniversary this year. And I was only just sharing with David, I've been lucky enough to be a part of that crew, part of that cohort of coaches for the best part of 6 years. So how to connect and collaborate. I see some things coming through the chat already, which is brilliant. And so Gargi's going to be supporting me in the background. I've got it up on my screen as well. So thank you for those already checking in. On that note, connection, collaboration. Keep saying g'day in the chat. Maybe you could let us know where you're based, the nature of the business. Yeah, I'm sure the context is electrical, but what is it? Is it solar? Maybe a bit of HVAC? Yeah. Is it residential? Is it commercial? We've got some emojis there as well, so please don't be shy. Now, I know a lot of you may be familiar with Pro Trade United. For the unaware, Pro Trade United, as I mentioned, 10 years supporting trade and construction businesses, Australia and New Zealand's #1 coaching and mentor organisation. And here's the piece. I often notice that a lot of people get into business really committed, really passionate at this notion of running a business. Yet at some point, they roll out of bed and go, hang on, running a business, the business is running me. And maybe you could share in the chat whether that resonates. But what we essentially do is support business owners that have lost a little bit of their mojo, lost a little bit of clarity, or the flip of that. They're really clear on the vision and the direction. They just need some support. They need some guardrails in order to get there. And so what we do is we support them with stability and streamlining their business. You'll notice their consistency. You'll notice there as well choice. We help people scale their business. Now, please know, scale is context dependent. Scaling your business, I caught up with a client last week, scaling his business was actually reducing his revenue. Yet, because he reduced his revenue, he had more time and space to train his team. He delivered exceptional experiences for his customers. He increased his prices. And he still scaled his business because he increased his take-home profit. Yeah. So that's one example. Of course, some other examples are scaling as it relates to your revenue. Yeah, growing the number of projects, maybe the van, the team. The key is let's do it profitably, correct? There's no point in growing broke. We saw plenty of that through COVID. We're on the other side of the C word, so you probably won't hear me say it again. Apologies for bringing it up already. But we don't want to be growing broke. We want to do it deliberately. And of course, for some of them, it's stepping out of the day-to-day monotony. And longer term, maybe it's stepping out as it relates to selling your business. And the way that we do this is our structured process. And so I'm not going to bang on about this for too long, but one thing I'll observe is our structured process starts with the numbers. Yeah, there's no point in moving into any other areas of growth in your business if you don't understand the numbers. And one of the things that we do, I believe really well, is we keep it simple. You don't need to know how to do all of this, but you need to know enough so that the people in your corner, i.e. your accountants, your financial planners, etc., you're holding them to account. You're asking the right questions. You're proactively driving those relationships. And of course, having a running buddy, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a coach, whether it's someone else in business who's that little bit further ahead, make sure that you've got people supporting you and holding you accountable. So some of our clients, again, maybe some familiar faces there. One of the things that I'd note with these clients is at Pro Trade, the coaching and the content, I like to think is great, but it's the community that we build. And speaking of the community, speaking of familiar faces, we've got David here who joined us last year. And so we've got here the broader community at Pro Trade. And at least a couple of times a year, sometimes more, we connect for our face-to-face events. And so consistently the feedback is it's great to have the support virtually. It's great to have the support in some of the smaller groups, but it's just so great to have this big group, this big community of like-minded people who are working on themselves and working on their business. So you can't really change anything, if you're not aware of where you're currently at. So on that note, let's do a bit of a check-in. What's the current reality? Where are you as it relates to the numbers? Now, Dave and I were having a bit of a chat backstage about the current state of play, and it's interesting. I've got some numbers and statistics here just to check in with you all, and maybe pay some attention. Where do you find yourself in these four? 40% of businesses are constantly and consistently losing money. 30% just break even. 20% make a small take-home profit of less than 10%. Yet only 10% or less of businesses make a solid take-home profit of 10+%. And so I know Gargi's driving for you guys to share in the chat, and absolutely, I'd love you to consider sharing in the chat. Where are you up to? Here's the piece. It's no judgment, whether you're breaking even, whether you lost a bit of money in the last quarter, or of course, whether you're at 10, 15, 20% net profit. The whole point is wherever you're currently at, let's look at improving it. Let's look at improving it. And what we know is incremental change scales exponentially. So if you feel like you're in a bit of a financial hole, please know, waking up every day, committed, disciplined, and rigorous with some of the ideas that we'll discuss today, in as little as 90 days or less, you can start to shift the energy in your business. And we know that the money stuff is a fundamental part of the energy in your business. Again, some great sharing in the chat, and appreciate the honesty. So please pay attention, regardless of where you're up to. What's a couple of things that you can do leaving today that will support improving that? Now, why does it matter? We know that profit and cash flow provide options and choice. A profitable business has options. They have options around who they choose to do work with. A profitable business has options around who they employ. A profitable business has the ability to grow. A profitable business has the ability to innovate. So you've got options around innovation. Think about the tools, think about the training for your team. And a profitable business has the ability to remunerate. And when we talk about remuneration, it's not just the dollar figure that you're paying your team. Remuneration through training. You're giving them some extra support and training, whether that's the hard skills, so giving them certain tickets, working at heights, etc., or the soft skills. We offer a leadership program, and the context is soft skill. So supporting your team to better communicate, supporting your team to better understand the day-to-day operations of a business. All of those options, though, all of those choices aren't available to a business that's not profitable. They're not available to a business that doesn't have consistent cash flow. Now, before we get into these 5 key steps, let's quickly address what's not the solution. And so what we've got here is a couple of gentlemen proudly standing by their ute with their watermelons. And this story essentially is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek story about 2 Irishmen called Paddy and Mick. And these Irishmen, they came up with a grand plan. They had access to some cheap watermelons. And what they decided is that we're going to buy a truck, and we're going to buy these watermelons. Again, we're only paying $1 for these watermelons. We're going to fill the truck. We're going to create a roadside stand, and we're going to sell these things. And several weeks in, business was booming. They couldn't keep up with the demand. However, a few weeks in, Paddy turns to Mick and says, mate, I feel like we've been working really hard, but there's not too much profit left. What's going on here? And so Mick said, I've been thinking the same thing, but I've got a solution. The solution is we need a bigger truck. If we have a bigger truck, we're going to be able to buy more watermelons. And if we buy more watermelons, we'll sell more watermelons. And surely, if we're selling more, we're going to be making more. Now, as silly as that story may seem, absolutely, this is what's showing up for so many businesses. Buying a watermelon and selling a watermelon, buying it for $1 rather and selling it for $1. So many trade and construction-based businesses think that the solution is buying and selling more watermelons. If you win more work, that next project is the solution. All it's going to do is exacerbate the issues that are currently causing your business to not be profitable. And whilst I don't know that anyone in this room is paying $1 for some materials and labor and only charging $1 to their customer. What I do know is there'd be people on this call thinking the solution to their cash flow is more work. And please know, fix your money stuff and then win the work. I've worked with countless clients who've arrived at ProTrade with their tail between their legs because they'd scaled too quickly. They thought that signing the contract on that big project was the solution to their money stuff. All it did, though, it may have scaled the revenue, but it also scaled all of the gaps in their pricing, all of the gaps in their processes, all of the gaps in the inefficiencies with their team. So again, that's definitely not the solution. More work. Keeping it interactive. Thank you again, Andrew, for sharing and saying g'day in Brisbane. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a Brizzy boy as well, mate. So I trust you've enjoyed a slightly colder than usual day, but I'm mindful we've got people around Australia and New Zealand. So for me to say it's been cold is probably a little bit silly, given the actual cold temperatures. I'm curious, while we're in the chat, what's hardest for you? Where are the headaches as it relates to your cash flow? What keeps you up at night as it relates to your money? Where are things not flowing? Have you got some challenges with some customers? Have you got some challenges with people that are pushing back on your price? Again, David and I having a little bit of a chat around the economy. Let's see what comes up in the chat. And I know someone raised their hand, so please, if you're able to share that question in the chat, that is going to be the best way for me to address those questions. And if you're not sharing them in the chat, at the very least, just do a bit of a check-in. What are the current blocks? What are the issues for you in your business? And on that note of blocks, please know in any area of your life, the block isn't in the way, the block is the way. So Matthew, thanks for sharing. Finding work that's profitable is a little bit of a block. So that's not in the way. It's important for Matt. That is the way. Look at why it is that you're getting pushback on this work. Look at why it is that you're not profitable. And thank you, Matt, because my intention is to have you leaving today a little bit clearer on finding work that's profitable. On that note of finding work that's profitable, David and I, at the chat backstage, we were talking about what's the energy like out in the market. And it's fascinating to me, the reason that I've got the sheet up here is that most people just do what everyone else is doing. Yeah, think about it. Their pricing structures, oh, we just kind of do this because the other people kind of do this. And their hiring process looks the same as everyone else. The way they manage their cash flow, yep, the way that they're winning their clients, following up with their clients, whatever it is, they just do what everyone else is doing. Maybe a few minor tweaks for the sake of it. Ironically, though, they sit around at the end of the week complaining with each other about getting the same result. And what do we know about the definition of insanity? It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So sitting around complaining because you're doing things the same way is a hiding to nowhere. What we do know, though, is the biggest barrier, for all of us, the biggest block, it's us. Have you ever noticed every problem that you had, you were always there? Please get it, guys. You want to fix the money stuff? Stop thinking that it's out there. How are you showing up? How are you relating to the numbers? What are the conversations you're having with yourself? Because what we do know is that if you don't know and you're not asking for help, there's a part of you, albeit unconsciously at times, that doesn't care. Yeah. And so well done to all of you for committing to this evening, because there's a part of you that's clearly curious. There's parts for all of us, we've got blind spots. And so you're asking the question, and I want to ensure that you leave today clear on some answers. However, this 80 and 20, what I'm referring to here is it's not enough to know. In the age of information, it's not enough just to know. So the 20% is me giving you some ideas. Yep, I'm going to give you some ideas this evening. But if you do nothing with them, guys, you're not going to create any change. Yeah, it's the 80%. If I look at the businesses that have committed to transforming themselves and transforming their business, it's their ability to take the information and execute. And so please know, commitment, discipline, and rigor. That's what is required, in my experience, to make radical change in your business. That's what's required if you really want to capitalize on some of the ideas that we'll be discussing today. Speaking of personal blocks, Notice what shows up for you. The tradie chatter. Yeah, we just do what everyone else is doing. And think about pricing. How many people price, and we'll chat about it a little more later. How many people price by looking at the lowest, looking at the highest, throwing a bit of a dart in the middle and hoping that that's going to make them profit? Some of the other tradie chatter we've got here, if it isn't working, I'll just work harder. I hate to break it to you guys, look around. Effort and output is not a direct correlation to profit. I hate to break it to you. Working harder is not the solution. Again, buying more trucks and more watermelons is not the solution if you're not fixing the money stuff. Not wanting to stand out, that tall poppy syndrome. And again, culturally, I know we've got Australia and New Zealand, but particularly Aussies, culturally, that tall poppy syndrome. But if you want to create a business that's different to the majority, you've got to be willing to do things that are different to the majority. You've got to be courageous enough to stand out. Here's a classic story. I've wrestled with this myself over the years. I've never been good with numbers. They're not really my thing. Okay, great. Yeah, if you don't think you're good with numbers, you're just going to keep experiencing a world in which you're not good with numbers. Business is a struggle. Now we've got here, it's noble. Think about culturally, the busyness badge of honor for so many people. Yeah, so noble. He's working 60, 70 hours a week providing for his family. There's nothing inherently wrong with doing that, but please know, business doesn't need to be a struggle. A bit of an extension of I'm not good with numbers. I'm not smart enough. I'm a master at my craft. I'm a great, fill in the blank, electrician, carpenter, whatever the story is. But no, I'm not really good with that kind of stuff. And another one that's interesting to note is the part of us that doubts our worth to create an amazing business. The part of us that questions whether we're valuable enough to be wealthy and free. And my assertion for all of us is, who are we not to? Who are you not to stand out? Who are you not to step up? Who are you not to create an amazing business where you offer an amazing product and service for your customers? You employ an amazing group of people, and absolutely you get remunerated both financially and with your time as a result. So I'm going to run through a few mistakes that we have observed, and I'm sure some of you can relate to. Confusing business with profitability. Again, there's no real correlation there. Unfortunately, output and effort are pointless if your pricing is fundamentally flawed. On that note of pricing, messy and inaccurate bookkeeping and financials. And so as an accountant, I make a great coach. So please know I am not an accountant, but when I work with clients, the first thing I do is ensure that they've got a good relationship with an accountant that they know and trust. And a good accountant will ensure that you've got a good bookkeeper. I'm yet to work with a trade-based business where doing their own books is where they add value to the business. And so if that's something that you take from today, if you're still reconciling the books, spending time on that, yet you're looking to grow your business, or at the moment you're making money by being out on the tools, I would encourage you to consider outsourcing that. Now, with your accountant and with your bookkeeper, please ensure that they understand the importance of trade-specific accounting and trade-specific bookkeeping. And the biggest mistake, being messy, is we're going to avoid it. We're going to resist it. That's to some extent. If it's inaccurate, if it's not up to date, we're not energized by getting in front of it. The third one there is not charging enough for labor on jobs. One of the things that we work with clients on is an hourly rate calculator. And I'm sure some of you, whether it's through training organizations like ProTrade or some of the job management software, I'm sure some of you have access to that. But I do still see a cohort of businesses where they're winging it. They're paying their team 45, 50 bucks an hour. They're thinking 20 or 30 bucks on top. Surely that's enough. You've got to make sure that there's evidence to support the dollar figure that you're tacking onto the labor. No cash reserves. Yep. Really, really important. Rule of thumb, 3 to 6 months. Yep, of cash reserves that would support the business if you didn't win any work. Now, for some of you, that's going to seem like a huge stretch. Okay, great. Let's just start small. And then only one bank account. I'll explore that a little bit deeper later in the presentation. Continuing on with these mistakes is pricing based on the average. Like I mentioned before, here's the cheapest, here's the dearest. We'll go somewhere in the middle and hope for the best. There's so many nuances and differences that determine what a business should be charging. When you just throw a dart, please know at some level, and maybe some of you have experienced this, you're not confident in the numbers. Because we're not confident in the numbers, what occurs is the second we get pushed back on our pricing, we succumb to it. But we succumb to it because we're not confident. We're not confident because we don't know. And that exact same dollar figure, that hourly rate, if you really knew this is what it costs to charge and a client said, can you take 10% off? If you really knew the numbers, you'd have the confidence to say, I'd love to, but we can't. For us to continue delivering a great product and service, this is what we charge and this is why we charge it. Speaking of confidence on the numbers, not aware of the break even. We'll do a little activity on this, but your break even number, all businesses have a break even number. We call it the BAM, the bare ass minimum. Yeah, this is what your business requires in order to keep the doors open. Not back costing. How awesome that we're having this conversation in 2025. All of you have access to relatively low cost software, yeah, that allows you to back cost so much easier than even 5 or 10 years ago. And of course, if you're not investing in that software just yet and it doesn't feel like the next logical step, at the very least, make sure that you're spending time looking at what you priced versus what it cost you. Discounting to win work. There's many reasons not to discount. The first is it dilutes your position in the market. The second is you're doing a disservice to your valued customers who keep coming back and keep paying the same. But the truth is, if you have to win so much more work, you take 10% off your pricing, you need to win a big chunk of extra work in order to pick up the lost margins. And then finally, no cash flow forecast. The benefit of a cash flow forecast. So much of the anxiety around money comes from the uncertainty. David, if I had 100 grand coming for you, but you didn't know whether it was coming tomorrow or in 6 months, you'd probably have a different relationship to the 100 grand, correct? And if you knew it was coming in 6 months, you could make some decisions based on that money. At least it's coming in at that time. And so again, for some of you, if you're in that place of fight or flight, or there's fear around the numbers, you've got to rip the Band-Aid off, guys. You've got to tell the whole truth. What's the current state of play? And we do that through forecasting, and ideally you're looking at the next few months ahead. Yeah, thanks, Greg. We'll run through a quick activity around the BAM, the bare ass minimum, and yeah, make sure that you all leave clear on the benefit. Yeah, great. So a few of you in the chat there sharing around the BAM number, and it's useful for many reasons. It can be really useful as well in the context of marketing activities. So on this note, let's have a quick pause and a bit of a powwow in the chat. What's coming up for you? The BAM, the bare ass minimum, that's great. What else is coming up for you guys? If you think about the ground that we've covered already, what's been of value? Maybe it was the reminder, the watermelon story. Maybe it was the reminder of the commitment, the discipline, the rigor that is required to make change in any area of your life. And what I do know is for some of you, it's the value has been in the break even. Yeah, thank you, Adam and Shell. And with the watermelon story, like as funny as it is, it's scary to me how true that is for so many businesses. And again, maybe not literally dollar for dollar, but certainly literally as it relates to underpricing and thinking the solution is selling more watermelon. So let's get excited. Let's get energized and absolutely, Matt, where your attention goes, your energy flows. Yeah, I don't want to talk to people that are doom and gloom about the current state of the economy. I don't want to talk to people that are doom and gloom about how hard it is to hire. I want to talk to people that are winning. I want to talk to people that are winning work. I facilitated a session just today, and I've got a cohort of people who are absolutely flying with their hiring, and there's a couple of people in there that are struggling. But I look at that and go, okay, well, great. There's evidence to support both things. What would I like to focus on? I'd like to focus on the people that are winning. I'd like to know what they're doing. And again, that was the benefit of the group today, is the two people that were struggling, they took some inspiration from those that were succeeding. And interesting to note, looping it back to this evening's conversation, those that were succeeding were profitable and investing in the marketing activities to attract people. They were profitable, which allowed them to pay, and they were profitable, which allowed a great culture, extra training, etc. So I'll jump back into here. Let's jump into, essentially these 5 steps, and we'll start with the first thing, understanding the key numbers. I mentioned earlier, you manage your money more wisely, you'll have more money to manage. but you've got to track, you've got to measure, and then you can manage. So what are we tracking? What are we measuring? What are we managing? We want to look at our gross profit. Yep, gross profit, please know this is the real money left over after you deliver your product or service that pays for the rest of your business. I mentioned earlier, messy and inaccurate books. Really important to make sure that you're reporting your books accurately. Yep, and separating the costs of goods sold versus your overheads. And that's a separate conversation for a separate day. Maybe jot that down and ask that question of your accountant or your bookkeeper. Or certainly later this evening, I'll make sure you all get access to a chat with us if it feels like a match. So your gross profit, understanding the key numbers, your break even, that bare ass minimum, the value of work in advance. Again, know what's coming up. The benefit of knowing that there's 50 grand in the pipeline, 10 grand in the pipeline, $500,000 in the pipeline, you can make decisions based off of the abundance of work, i.e. we've got to start pulling back and managing expectations on customers, let them know that we usually get out in this time frame, but we're not going to be able to because we're at capacity. That's a good win, sharing the expectation with the customers. But the flip of that, knowing the work booked in advance, and you can go, hang on, we usually like to have X amount on the books and we've got nothing. We need to get out there. We need to win some work. Versus the pervasive paradigm is I'm going to put my head in the sand, which for a lot of tradies, that's head down, ass up. So we don't literally avoid it, but we find all of these beautiful distractions. I'm going to go over here and be busy for the sake of being busy. Yep. Oh, I'm needed over here. I was going to get in front of the numbers, but oh no, there's a bit of a fire to put out over here. So again, know those numbers. And number 4, the way that we know the numbers is the future cash flow. Yeah. And so whether that's looking at the week or the month in advance, all the way through to 3 months. And please know, guys, I'm sharing this in a general context. I'm sure there's some service-based businesses in the room, yeah, where some of this forecasting is a little bit different. You don't know what's coming up in 4 days because it's the reactive nature of the business. And of course, maybe there's some bigger project businesses where you know what the next 6 months looks like. Irrespective of the nuance, it's important though to be projecting and looking ahead. So on this note of the gross profit, a couple of really quick reminders, and this isn't a deep dive this evening, so I'm going to keep it pretty short and sweet. But what we've got here is a sample business where we've got the trading income here. Yep. And so this business here, $253,000 has come in. But the cost of sales, everyone in this room, predominantly you're selling labor and you're selling materials. And whatever money that we've got left over, guys, that's paying for your salary if you're no longer on the tools. That's paying for your ute. That's paying for your office. That's paying for your admin staff. That's paying for your accountant. That's paying for your mentor, all of those things. So the gross profit, really, really important because that's paying for the rest of the business. And so this example here, they're left with 54.6% gross profit or $138,000. Now I know I'll get ahead of the chat. Yeah, a very common question. What should my gross profit be? There's a lot of different factors that determine gross profits as a percent, right the way through to how you're reporting your books. So that being said, it's difficult for me to sit there and tell someone, hey, it should be X. I mean, if it's really low, I can get a sense of the obvious need, the acute issue. But here's the gig, regardless of where it's currently at today, what should your gross profit be? It should be more. Yeah. Incremental change scales exponentially. The power of the 1%. If you haven't read Atomic Habits by James Clear, I'd encourage you to check that out. But look for the incremental change. It's amazing when you pull a couple of little levers and you compound it over the course of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. You can absolutely make a massive difference. Now, what's the upside? What's the benefit? It's going to reduce the break-even amount, that BAM number. It's going to allow you to invest in growth. Yep. Here's the piece with profit. It allows you to grow, it allows you to innovate, and it allows you to remunerate. So if you're looking to get your team engaged in being more efficient to become more profitable, make sure you give them that context. Make sure they're not sitting there thinking that you want them to be more efficient so that you can enjoy a new F truck, so that you can enjoy a trip to Fiji. They might be byproducts of running your business, but get them engaged and let them know the more profitable we are, the more that we can hire and grow. The more profitable we are, the more that I can innovate to give you extra training, to give you extra tools. And of course, put your money where your mouth is. If business is doing well, make sure that your team is succeeding as well. So again, you need the profit there to remunerate. So number 2, again, more to invest in your marketing, training, growth, technology, and team. The third one is it indicates an efficient, stable, and valuable business. Early on when I work with clients, one of the mantras that I share for everyone, they should be looking at creating a saleable business. Whether that's actually on the agenda or not is besides the point. The way I see it is a business worth selling is a business worth keeping. Yeah. And so if you focus on, if someone was to buy this, what would this business need? Everything that business would need would give you more freedom. So whether you choose to sell the business or not, the systems, the processes, the structure, the profit. The fourth thing is it's going to give you a higher operating profit. The fifth thing here is it caters for the occasional loss on a job. No one's perfect. Yeah, so every now and then you might take a hit, and that could be for reasons outside of your control. So the break even, I know it's come up in the chat, which is great, and it's relatively simple to work out. The information that you need to work out the bare ass minimum, what it costs you to keep the doors open. You need your gross profit margin as a percentage, and you need the overheads or operating expenses. Now, it doesn't matter whether you look at this in a monthly, quarterly, or annual context, as long as the answer that you get, you apply it to that same context. So you could get your annual profit and loss statement. From there, you could look at the gross profit margin for the year. You could look at the overheads or the expenses for the year. And all we do is this. We take the overheads, I've got an example here, and we divide it by the gross profit as a percentage. So for this business, $300,000 of overheads, whether that's for the day, whether that's for the week, the month, again, doesn't really matter. What it means is this business needs $667,000 to break even. The benefit of this is if you track, measure, and manage certain numbers, this business might have an average job value of just under $7,000. If the average job value is just under $7,000, they can look at it and go, okay, we need to win 100 jobs a year, as an example. Then you can thin slice it and go, well, if we need to win 100 jobs a year, what does that mean for the quarter? What does that mean for the month? Yeah, you can start to track, measure, and manage how many leads do we need to get in, subject to how often we're converting. So again, I don't want to confuse the situation, but you break even, it allows you to get back in the driver's seat, to pull some levers in advance. Quick question to the group. Whose overheads have gone up in the last few years? Yeah, not a trick question. I think I know the answer for all of us. I did a recent internal audit of my own insurances, and it was pretty fascinating to see. I'd been a little bit complacent with some insurances. Think about your overheads, insurances. What about rents? Yeah, I'm sure some of you, whether you rent or even whether you own, look at insurance, look at interest rates rather. You know, maybe you've got a commercial premises that you purchase. Look at how much that overhead expense has gone up over the years. What about your admin staff? What about some of your subscriptions? Yeah, well done, Jack. Overheads increased dramatically. Rule of thumb for all of you, and I get that this is going to feel like a stretch because you might not have the capacity to do it. But if you're not reviewing some of these overheads every 90 days, I believe you're missing a trick. The thing with reviewing your overheads is you never want to reduce them to the point of impacting your customer's experience, and you never want to misconstrue cost versus investment. So don't just look at it and go, cut off, get rid of all of that if it then impacts your ability to execute. But to Jack's point, you know, get yourself an insurance broker if you feel like you're spending too much. So this example, overheads have gone up by 10%. Not unrealistic, pretty modest if you ask me. And so what happens if gross profit moves a little bit? Now, what we've done here is we've gone from 45% gross profit to 43%, which again is relatively modest. Where this might be impacted is inefficiencies on site, but where it could also be impacted is who's paying more for their labor than 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, correct? Everyone in the room. Who's paying more for their materials? Yeah, lucky you've got the likes of Clipsal and Snyder in your corner, supporting you with some great deals, I'm sure, but all of us, the cost. I don't envy the electricians mid-COVID. You know, I think you were calculating the cost of cable per hour at one point. The whole point is that you've got to stay across those, because if you're not staying across those minor tweaks and you're not passing that cost on to your customers, this business needed to find an extra $100,000 to break even. And I worked with countless businesses that didn't have the time to review their overheads, didn't have the time to get in front of their numbers, said yes to all of the work that was coming through the door, particularly if we're talking a few years ago. We're getting inefficient, we're busier than ever, yet somehow they weren't making more money. This is why you've got to get in front of these numbers and then confidently pass those costs on to your clients. Making sense? And that's confidence piece is really key. Doing these activities is really going to support your confidence in your positioning, your confidence in your pricing. Now, we won't keep it all doom and gloom. Let's have a quick look here around the opposite. And so the opposite here, we've got the calculation and we're going to increase the gross profit. So overheads stay the same, but what if we made some tweaks here and we improved the gross profit? And so the benefit here is that the business needs $42,000 less. Yeah. And if we look at minor tweaks that are going to support and improve your gross profit, here's an idea for all of you. Increase what you're charging. Yeah, increase what you're charging. If you haven't done that in the last 3 months, you're missing a trick. Consistently, the feedback that I get, you can go into your software right now for those that are using it and you can make some changes. Consistently, the feedback is I got no pushback and I don't know why I didn't do it sooner. And of course, for some of you, if you've got long-standing important relationships, maybe pick up the phone and have a bit of a chat. The second one here is 15% pre-tax profit. This becomes your baseline. Yeah, this is going to support when you make a bit of a loss. This is going to support weather holdups. A new hire, I don't care how good the electrician is, if they haven't worked for you, you're going to need to hold their hand for a little bit. And if you're holding their hand, it's going to take a bit of a hit on the efficiencies of the project and you're going to lose a little bit of money. So at least if we're at 15%, when it dips, it's not an acute issue. And then, of course, the game becomes, how do we increase it? A client that doesn't pay. And then the final one, guys, as I mentioned earlier, you deserve it. The third thing to look at is your pricing structure. Now, please note, I'm generalizing here, but what we've got here is reframing it from hourly rate versus pricing on the outcomes. I recently went to the dentist. I've got 3 young kids, went with my wife. 5 of us arrive at the dentist. Now, if the dentist said to me, Dom, this is going to cost $1,000. I can do it in 25 minutes or I can do it in 2.5 hours. What do you prefer? I know there'd be some parents in the chat. I think all of us would take the 25 minutes over the 2.5 hours. Agreed? I don't care how long it takes the dentist. I'm going to pay him the $1,000 regardless. I'm there for the outcome. And so when you price on an hourly rate, one of the things that you lose is the ability to get paid for your expertise. Value-based pricing reflects the result and the outcome, not the time spent. Your clients care about results, not time, particularly in this pricing model. Hourly rates penalize efficiency. Yeah, the better you are, if you're charging by the hour, it penalizes how good you are. The set price outcomes allow you to collect deposits. So think about cash flow. Yeah, it allows you to take deposits. You're not waiting to finish the job before you can then invoice, because we can't invoice unless we've done the work. Yeah, because we need to know how many hours that we've done before we charge them. And of course, what we know is stage payments, another thing that might be for some of the bigger project stuff, and it's going to reduce that reliance on back-end invoicing. The fifth one, value-based pricing helps separate your brand from cheap electricians, and it helps you attract clients who want certainty and quality, not the lowest hourly rate. So I get for some of you, there's always going to be the hourly rate part of your business model potentially, but you could explore creating some fixed price menu items and some of the bigger project stuff. I get the temptation to do hourly rate. It's a big project. It eliminates some of the risk. But again, if you've got the structures in place, you could be leaving some money on the table. A quick plug, Andrew Griffith's amazing book, Someone Has to Be the Most Expensive, Why Not Make It You? So we were lucky enough to have Andrew join us as a guest speaker in our Masters group last year. But I'd encourage you to check this out. What he talks about is pricing to be in the top 10%. Yeah. And here's the thing, I've worked with a lot of service-based businesses, and some great insights that I've heard from them is businesses that are pushing back at $150, $160 an hour, they're the same businesses that are pushing back at $120. Not businesses, rather, people. They're the ones that want the $88 one-man band. And so have the courage to test and measure, but you might be pleasantly surprised. Speaking of pleasantly surprised, I wanted to share Jared from RPE. So he's part of our Masters program. But one of the things that we've really supported Jared with over the years is he works high-end commercial, team of about 40 people, but we've really worked on that 15% being his baseline. It was really important for him to continue to grow, particularly given, cash flow when you employ 40 people, you've got to stay on top of that. And the other thing that we've helped him with over the years is his efficiencies as well. All right, the fourth one, and I'm mindful of everyone's time, I'm mindful of the energy. We're getting towards the pointy end, but it's important to uncover the profit leak. So back costing every job, every van, and treat it like a game. I mentioned a lot of the software that helps it. Some of you may be at spreadsheets, but at the very least, it's time to park intuitively tracking the jobs. Park that noise. I know for some of you, you're sitting there, no, I kind of know that it's on track. I'm not interested in that. I want you to be really specific, back cost them. And the way that we do it is we look at quoted versus actual. Monitor operating expenses and efficiencies. They can be profit leaks. And have a third party review your pricing as well. Now, back costing, let's look at a quick example here. So this business, the quoted price was $100,000. The gross profit was 45%. But when we look at what actually played out, the labor blew out. The materials blew out. The rubbish removal blew out a tiny bit. And so all of a sudden, the gross profit went from 45% to 38.6%. The thinner you slice this, you can get to the end of a financial year, guys, and you might be at 10% net profit. But if half of your jobs broke even and half of them were amazing, wouldn't you want to know? So that you could eliminate the ones that broke even and you could win more of the ones that went really, really well. If you're not back costing, you don't have access to that information. So some quick ideas around productivity leaks: poor logistics and delivery management, inefficient scheduling, not managing your budget versus what's actually played out, callbacks. Make sure you're reducing these. Make sure you're tracking them. Hiring the wrong people, communication breakdowns, lack of systems and training, excessive overtime. That's an important one to be monitoring, and make sure that you're passing the overtime expense on to your customers. Wasting time. So whether that's the back and forth trips to your suppliers, people just having that extra 5 or 10 minutes at Smoko, walking back to the van. I supported a client recently. Lucky they went and walked the site because it was going to be an 800-meter walk to get to the job. Just the lay of the land was a very obscure project. Waiting for equipment to start up, materials, missing tools. I know for all of you, there's plenty of war stories, I'm sure, in the chat. Really quickly, speaking of back costing, so Bob Scott, so him and his wife, they've gone on 2 3-month trips away now, which is pretty impressive. They talk about commitment. But the only way they were able to build a profitable business and have the structure in place for them to step away for 12 weeks and have the business continue to thrive was they've done a lot of work, particularly around back costing, and they got the team engaged around it to ensure that everyone was improving their efficiencies. Number 5, guys, stop being the bank. So if you think about being the bank, you get to choose. You get to choose your cash flow structures. You get to choose the nature of the work. You get to choose your customers, and you get to choose your terms and conditions. The second one there, larger deposits and more frequent progress payments. So again, make sure that you're consulting someone to ensure that the T's and C's and the contracts are legally binding, but you get to choose to some extent. Make sure you're setting it up to benefit your cash flow. Full payment on completion. Separating your bank accounts and a cash flow forecast. So separating your bank accounts, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Profit First, the book. As money comes in, don't have one account, separate it. One bank account, guys, gives you a false sense of security. If you've got one bank account and it's showing 100 grand, but 70,000 of that is for your suppliers, for the ATO, for your wages, your super, you don't have 100 grand, do you? You've got 30. And if you were looking at 30 instead of 100, you'd probably be more proactive. You'd probably make different decisions. You'd get your invoicing out. You'd be winning more work. You'd be realizing that you need to do something about the current state of play. So this is a bit of a guide, but I'd look at exploring, putting money aside and separating these accounts. Now, we've got here, focus is about no. Every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. The truth is, all of us can turn certain areas of our life around in 90 days or less. It just requires focus. And so one of the things that we often work on with clients is the ability to set some intention, to get some clarity, and to narrow their focus. And so I'm eager. Share some thoughts in the chat as we round out this evening. What's coming up? What's been valuable so far? And I know David and I have a couple more things to share, so I appreciate and am mindful of everyone's time. But what's been of value? Please let us know in the chat. You think about back costing. You've got to make the time for the back costing. Think about getting your team engaged around back costing, being efficient. Yeah, keeping track. And Adam and Shell, you've got to make time for that. Very rare to roll out of bed and go, oh, today's the day. I'm going to back cost the last 3 jobs. Yep. Not always inspiring, these kinds of activities. So put it in the diary. Yeah, thank you, Jack. Value-based pricing. And there's a payoff and a trade-off, but it's that long-term upside is being able to have someone in an office, tell your customers, and obviously I don't know the business well, but it's like, if you want us to come out and replace this, fill in the blank, this is what it's going to cost. Yeah, there's no back and forth around your quoting. So yeah, upfront deposits support your cash flow. Some quick wins. Again, you'll get access to a recording. I trust some of you are jotting these thoughts down, but start measuring your gross profit, your break even, look at the work in advance, and start tracking your cash flow. So Matt, great question. Yep, GP, and you're even talking about the location that you are. When I share that there's nuance to it, it's not a cop-out for me as a coach. It's the nature of the way that you're reporting. However, if you guys, there's no reason that you're not at 40, 50% gross profit, but please know, it's such a generalization. I'm doing you a disservice by answering that question, Matt. What I'd really love to do is I'd love to see the numbers. I'd love to see the way that it's being reported. But the key is, what can you do to improve it? Yeah, that's the real key. Review your pricing monthly and quarterly, target 15%, yeah, pre-tax profit. Set up those separate bank accounts, and then that back costing, whether it's per project, whether it's per van, and commit. Yeah, that's great, Greg. A few thoughts coming through. Now, on that note, I mentioned the 90 days and I mentioned the focus. And so my question for you guys, particularly for the Aussies, we've just entered the new financial year. I know for those in New Zealand, you're into the second quarter. You get to choose. So what does your year look like? And so many people, we've got the fog here because we roll out of bed unclear on what the day looks like, let alone the year. And so it's important to get clear, which is, again, what we support clients. And we support them to get clear. What are they looking to create? And then what are some of the action steps that they could do moving forward? I mentioned earlier our proven structured process, and it starts with the numbers, guys. So please, there's going to be an invitation to reach out to us. But at the very least, just remember, the solution to your money stuff lies in the current state of play. The solution to your money stuff, if you can't make it work now, winning more work isn't the solution. So really quickly, I'm excited to throw to David in a moment. Gagi, I know that we've got access to a bit of a poll, but I just wanted to invite you guys as an opportunity here. If you wanted to connect with some of the team, we'd be more than happy to have a bit of a chat, answer some of those more nuanced questions, and yeah, a bit of a personalized business performance session. Being a part of the Clipshall Snyder crew, being on the call this evening, it's something that we'd love to offer you. So if it's a yes, please let us know. If you're unsure, let us know as well. And if it's a no for whatever reason, thank you for your commitment. And obviously, I trust you're getting value from these conversations. Speaking of these conversations, David, I'm really keen to throw to you, my friend, as everyone wraps up that poll. So again, keep those answers coming through.
Thanks, Dom, and always insightful, and the numbers being so important in business. Often you can get busy and let it go to the wayside, and that's when trouble starts, right? And I love the thought of checking projects. What did you call it? Making sure your project's completed,
Yeah.
going back and doing the checks. It's got to bring value, right, for the long term. And also the bucket one, I like that one as well, right? Where you're separating your costs so you can get an easy, clear picture. Really, really cool. So thanks, Dom. I guess I've only got one thing I want to cover off, and while I'm doing this, maybe Dom, have a look through to see who the two prize winners are, first and second, for the merch that will come their way.
Yeah.
So maybe you have a look at that. So I just wanted to give an update. What's new coming in Australia? We've got a Clipshall industry event happening next year, 2026. It's part of our AMPed series. And I thought I'd just share a little video what it looks like. Next slide.
Absolutely. And I'll get the thumbs up that we can all hear it. You can hear that, Dave?
Hi everyone, I'm Chris Kerr, the CEO of Clipsal.
Good.
The Clipsal team is really excited and looking forward to seeing you at AMP 26, which will be happening at the unbelievable Hamilton Island in the heart of the Whitsundays. The AMP series is a major highlight in our calendar, and I have no doubt that will make it even better than Cairns last year. This is a fantastic opportunity for us to learn more, achieve more, and do more together. So here's a teaser to show you what you can expect. Wow, what a teaser. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you're excited about our trip to Hamilton Island. It would be awesome to reconnect and make new relationships. The Clipsal team is super excited about meeting you there.
It's a good one to finish on, hey Tom. So this is a series we run bi-yearly. The last one was at Cairns. We had 500 customers at a warm location this time of the year, or it's May, of course. And we're looking forward to doing the next version of that, which is at Hamilton Island in 2026. We'll have 600 people. We're booking out the whole hotel at Hamilton Island. It'll be a Clipsal hotel. 2 business days, so you come and learn. You saw in the images there some of the images from AMP 24 in Cairns. We make sure it's inclusive, so whether a small business owner or a large one, we encourage your partners to come, right? So you saw in those images there, the training sessions are covering that. To make sure that it's very inclusive. Of the first day and second day, I think we lost 2 people over the 2 days. So really good sessions. You'll learn about business. We'll invite partners like ProTrade. You'll learn about products. You'll learn, we've got 2 new offers being launched in 2026, major launches. You'll see them first. And you give the opportunity, we have our engineers there, so you'll be able to give feedback on new products and our existing offers. Plenty of downtime. You saw in the videos there. We had John Stevens from Noiseworks at the event last year. So this year we're selecting who that'll be coming forward, and some key speakers. We had people like Dylan Alcott, Australian of the Year, Olympic medalists. It's a pretty awesome 4 days. And tax deductible. So I suggest if you didn't come, keep your eyes open. The registrations go live in 2 weeks. So you're first to hear, first to know.
David, you took the words out of my mouth there, mate. Tax deductible. Of course, talk to your accountant, but also, David, great timing that we've given them almost 12 months to really increase their profits, create that space in their business so that they can come and enjoy all of the value, but they can also know that the business we'll keep ticking. So yeah, I think seeing that really, really exciting. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen momentarily, but one last thought for all of you is just remembering, and it's something that I love to coach people on, is that we always have a choice. Sometimes we forget. Yep. And even for me, I often forget. You know, the commitment is to remember. And so leaving today, just remember, you get to choose your relationship with the numbers. Am I doing this by default, rolling out of bed into the whirlwind, or am I choosing to design it? Yeah, you get to choose, guys. Speaking of choice, we've had a bit of fun choosing some winners for the merch. So Gargi, I know you're on the call there. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and really appreciate everyone's time this evening. I trust it's been valuable. Bit of a Zoom drum roll, Gargi. I'll get you to announce our merch winners. Is that a thing?
We've created it now. Okay, great. Okay, so our winners are, would you like me to announce the winners?
Please, Gargi, please do.
Waiting with the bated breath. Winners are Greg Eisenberg. Well done, Greg. And Matthew Hobson.
Well done. I'll just
Hey, we got that using the reactions. Love it. Fantastic.
An emoji up.
Well done.
And so well done to Greg and to Matt and for everyone. You know, I really do mean it when I say I appreciate your time. It's incredibly valuable. And I trust that there's been some value this evening. So, David, I'm feeling complete. Thanks again for your support. Gargi, I'm feeling complete. For everyone in the chat, I'm looking forward to connecting with you at some point. Maybe at the very least, I'll be connecting with you at Hamilton Island. But I'd love the opportunity to connect with you a lot sooner than that. We can unpack some of the talking points this evening. So have a safe evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we look forward to connecting with you soon.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.